It is estimated that over 30 million people were killed during the Mongol conquest, 40 million during the World War I, and over 70 million during World War II. These events are widely documented and taught to students worldwide in their history and political science textbooks. However, there are a few instances where some events were brushed off under the rug of overtly denying them. A narrative is being circulated that the British built buildings, schools, railways, and institutions. There is more to the narrative. The British even taught Indians how to live, as they were very primitive and it was the white man's burden to civilize them. Do you know what led to the rise of colonialism? It was the Industrial Revolution.
See, the Industrial Revolution in the Great Britain had a ripple effect on the entire world, thus making it an important event in human history. It is also claimed that 90% of the world lived in poverty before industrial capitalism. The rise of capitalism is said to have emancipated millions of people by pulling them out of the poverty, and the world experienced what is called the Great Escape. But how much of it is true? Did the majority of the people starve and live in destitution before Western industrialization? How many of you know that the British colonization of India killed over 100 million people? In this video, we will look at this event in more detail.
Economic anthropologist Jason Hickel and his co-author published an article in the academic journal World Development titled Capitalism and Extreme Poverty, a global analysis of real wages, human height, and mortality since the 16th century. The paper highlights that the standard narrative of destitution being a natural condition of humanity before industrialization in the 18th and 19th century is not quite true and was popularized without being backed by adequate data. The capitalist economy expanded in the early 15th to late 16th century. During the later 300 years, Western Europe depended on dispossession. It means mass enslavement of Africa and colonization of the Americas and India. Historically, unskilled urban laborers had wages high enough to support a family of 4 above the poverty line by working 250 days or 12 months a year.
As per economic historian R.C. Allen's alternate estimate of historical poverty, during the peak of feudalism in 1290 in England, extreme poverty was between 20 to 30%. By 1688, it came down to 5 to 10%. By the 19th century, it was completely eliminated. There was no extreme poverty in the United States during the 19th century. That means even the slaves in the USA had enough basic needs covered for themselves. It is estimated that India's poverty rate in the 1600s was on par with developing parts of Western Europe.
In 1810, Indian wages were much lower than what they were during the Akbar's reign in the late 16th century. This is despite the great wealth drain and plunders during the Mughal rule. This shows the severity of the British colonial rule and its impact in inducing extreme poverty. The rise of Western Europe and the socio-economic shift of overtaking other civilizations to become the most powerful and wealthy civilization is called Great Divergence. This wasn't limited to India alone. Regions like Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, and China in Asia witnessed an increase in poverty and deterioration of human stature due to colonization. Latin America saw the bloody expansion of capitalism through genocide, slavery, land grabs, and disease. The region went under capitalist control through the imperialism of Spanish, Portuguese, and the USA. Peripheral Eastern Europe was deindustrialized and reduced to raw material suppliers to fuel the economic growth of England, Netherlands, and France. These countries are considered the European core. For most of peripheral Europe, progress only began in the 20th century.
On the other hand, India was forced to incorporate into the capitalist system and was systematically deindustrialized by the British. In the 17th and 18th centuries, India accounted for 95% of British imports from Asia. it accounted for 24% of the world's output in the 18th century. By the end of Indian independence, its share in the world economy declined to 4.2%. According to Allen, India's poverty rose from 23% in 1810 to 50% in the mid-20th century. As a consequence, India suffered 165 million excess deaths due to the British colonialism between 1880 and 1920. The death toll was larger than the combined number of deaths from both World Wars and the Nazi Holocaust. The only historical parallel would be the Islamic conquest of India, in which millions were killed over centuries. The period from 1880 to 1920 was the height of Britain's imperial power. This was also the most devastating period for India during the colonial rule. Comprehensive population censuses carried out by the colonial regime beginning in the 1880s revealed that the death rate increased considerably during this period and life expectancy declined to a low. During the Bengal famine in 1943, the British government exported food and banned grain imports. This resulted in the death of over 3 million Indians due to starvation.
These are among the largest policy-induced morality crises in human history. It is larger than the combined number of deaths that occurred during all famines in the Soviet Union, Mao's China, North Korea, Pol Pot's Cambodia, and Mengistu's Ethiopia. Britain siphoned out at least $45 trillion from India during the 2 centuries of their rule here. There was virtually no increase in the per capita income between 1900 to 1946. This was at the time when India registered the second largest export surplus earnings in the world for 3 decades. The purchasing power of ordinary Indians was squeezed by taxes. They were so high that the per capita annual consumption of food grains went down from 200 kg in 1900 to 157 kg on the eve of World War II. It further plummeted to 137 kg by 1946. No country in the world today, not even the least developed, is anywhere near the position India was in 1946. A certain section may tell that humanity was in destitution and only the capitalist industrial revolution brought about the great escape. But the modern capitalist world would not exist without colonialism and the drain perpetuated across the globe.
Please subscribe to Nationalist Hub English channel for more interesting videos, and don't forget to like and share this video. Nationalist Hub, it's a news revolution.